I could hear the hooves of the Persian horses approaching as I ran towards the only place where I knew they wouldn't follow me. The forest of petrified souls. I had killed their general in fair combat, but for them, there was no such thing as honor in defeat. They wanted my head and had been chasing me for 3 days through the mountains. The dark forest rose before me like a wall of shadows and perpetual mist. The Persians stopped their horses at the forest's edge, and I could hear their discussion in the distance. None of them wanted to enter, because they knew the legends as well as I did. They said that whoever entered the forest never came out alive, or worse yet, came out turned to stone. But between certain death at the hands of the Persians and possible death in the forest, I chose the second option and went deep into the thicket. The temperature dropped immediately and the sunlight disappeared, as if I had entered a completely different world. I walked for hours among trees that looked like claws trying to catch me. The statues became more frequent and more disturbing because their faces showed pure terror. They weren't sculptures, but real people turned to stone in their last moment of panic. Then I heard her for the first time, a female voice singing a melody that was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. I reached a clearing where the singing was stronger, and I saw her sitting on an ancient rock covered in moss. "Don't come any closer, Greek warrior," she said without opening her eyes. "Unless you want to join my collection of statues." I stopped immediately because I recognized what she was. A Gorgon, the cursed Medusa from ancient legends. "I only seek refuge from the Persians who pursue me," I said, keeping my gaze on the ground. "I don't mean to cause you trouble." She laughed, and it was a sound like crystals breaking in the darkness. "Trouble? Dear Alexios, you're the one who has trouble now." The fact that she knew my name chilled my blood more than the cold of the forest. "How do you know my name?" "I know many things about those who enter my domain because I can smell their destiny in the wind. You killed General Darius in the plains of Anatolia, and now his men want revenge." I risked looking at her, but keeping my eyes on her body, not on her face. The snakes on her head moved independently, each one watching me from different angles. "If you know so much, then you know I had no choice. It was him or me in that battle. There are always choices, Alexios. For example, right now, you have a very important one to make." "You can try to leave the forest, and the Persians will be waiting to cut off your head," she continued as she rose from the rock, with movements fluid as water. "Or you can try to kill me, like the hero you think you are, and end up as stone decorating my garden." The snakes on her head hissed in unison, as if laughing at the idea. "And what's the third option?" I asked, because I knew there was something more. Smart for a soldier. "The third option is, you stay with me forever, and I protect you from your enemies." I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of the proposal. Stay here Eternally? With you? Why would I want to do that? For the first time, she opened her eyes, but kept them looking at the ground, not directly at me. They were an impossible green that glowed in the darkness. Because I'm tired of loneliness, Alexios. I've spent 300 years in this forest with only statues for company. The gods cursed me to turn anyone who looks at me into stone, but they never said I couldn't make a deal. There was genuine sadness in her voice that surprised me. What kind of deal? If you accept to stay with me by your own will, I'll make you immune to my curse. You'll be able to look at me without turning to stone, and I'll finally have someone to talk to who can answer me. It was a trap. It had to be, but something in her voice told me the offer was real. Why me? I asked while sitting on a rock, keeping a safe distance. Surely others have passed through your forest? Many have passed, but they all came to kill me for glory, or to steal the treasures they think I guard. You're the first who enters just seeking survival, with no intention to harm me. She sat too, and I noticed she kept her hands crossed over her lap in an almost timid manner. My real name is Medea, not Medusa. That name was given to me by those who feared me. Before the curse, I was a priestess of Athena. What happened? I asked, genuinely curious. Poseidon took me by force in Athena's temple, and she, instead of punishing him, punished me with this form. Divine justice. Her voice dripped with centuries of bitterness. I knew well the cruelty of the gods and their arbitrary punishments. The Persians will leave eventually, I said, trying to reason. They can't wait forever. They'll leave in 3 days, but they'll return with more men and trackers. I've seen you fight in my visions. You're formidable, but you can't handle 100 men alone. She was right, and I knew it. I was trapped between a rock and a hard place, or, in this case, between the Persians and the Gorgon. If I accept to stay, what guarantee do I have that you won't turn me to stone when I get bored of your company? The snakes on her head moved restlessly, and she smiled sadly. No guarantee, other than my word. But think about it this way. What would I gain by turning the only real company I'd have in centuries into stone? I spent the entire night considering my options, while she waited patiently for my decision. With the first lights of dawn filtered through the eternal mist, I heard the Persian horns in the distance. They had returned with reinforcements, as she predicted. I accept your deal, I finally said, and saw how her entire body relaxed with relief. Are you sure? Once done, there's no turning back. I'm sure. I prefer a prison with company than death in solitude. She stood up and walked towards me with her eyes closed. She took my hands, and I felt an ancient power flow between us. The snakes on her head touched me gently, each one leaving a small mark on my skin that glowed and then disappeared. Open your eyes, I said when the ritual ended. Oh, are you sure? Open your eyes, Medea. She opened them slowly, and for the first time in 300 years, someone could see her complete face without turning to stone. She was beautiful in a supernatural way, with features that seemed sculpted by the gods themselves before her curse. It worked, she whispered, with tears running down her blue cheeks. It really worked. The Persians entered the forest at that moment, 50 men armed to the teeth. Medea looked at me and smiled. "Watch what I can do for you, now that you're mine." She turned towards the invaders and opened her eyes completely. The first one turned to stone instantly, then the second, the third. In a matter of minutes, the entire Persian detachment was a new collection of statues decorating the forest. Three weeks have passed since I accepted the deal, and my life has changed in ways I never imagined. Medea turned out to be a more complex companion than I expected. During the day, she teaches me the secrets of the forest, the magical properties of the plants that grow here, and the stories of each statue. At night, we talk for hours about philosophy, war, love, and loss. "Do you regret it?" she asked me last night, while we watched the stars from the only clearing where the forest canopy opened. I expected to regret it, but I don't. I admitted honestly. This prison is more freedom than the life I led. It's not a prison if you can leave whenever you want. She surprised me with those words because they contradicted our original agreement. "You said there was no turning back." I lied because I was desperate. "If you really want to leave, I won't stop you. But you'd have to live knowing that you condemn me to eternal loneliness again." It was a different trap, one of guilt instead of magic, but effective. "I won't leave," I said, taking her hand. "Not anymore." The snakes on her head purred with satisfaction, and for the first time since her curse, Medea smiled genuinely. "Maybe someday," she said, looking at the horizon. "When the gods forget my punishment, or when I find a way to break it, we can leave this forest together." And if that day never comes, then we'll make this cursed forest our personal paradise. The Persians never returned because those who enter the forest of petrified souls never leave. But I'm not a prisoner, but a guardian. I'm not cursed, but blessed with immunity to her deadly gaze. Sometimes love is born in the most unexpected places, even in a forest of statues. Between a fugitive warrior and a lonely gorgon,